Today's guest on the Financial Planner Live podcast is Freddie Winter from Gratitude Financial Planning. He is a chartered financial planner. He takes us on a career journey starting at Coots on the graduate scheme. He goes into great detail about what he learnt on that scheme and also some advice about how you can get yourself on one. Also, we go on a career journey through power planning into employed financial advice, finally ending up on running his own directly authorised financial planning firm, Gratitude Financial Planning. And he talks about the process of going directly authorised and some of the things he might have done differently. We hyper-focus on social media. We talk about podcasting, and we also talk about some of the ideas that I think financial planners should implement to tackle the B2B market as well as the C2C market. I hope you enjoy the episode. Freddie, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm very grateful, which is fitting because your company name is Gratitude Financial Planning. And that was what really caught my eye in the beginning. I'm a massive fan of an attitude of gratitude. So to meet somebody who's named their company Gratitude, you're right on the same path as me, mate. So great stuff. Look, really, really pleased to have you here today to learn about you and your career within financial planning. First off, Freddie, how are you, mate?
I'm great, thank you, Sam. Thank you for having me on, by the way. I've been following the podcast for quite a while, so it's actually quite a privilege to come on and share my story and help other people out like they've helped me. So good to be here.
Fantastic, and thank you for supporting the show. I really appreciate that. When I first set it up, it was all about creating that window into the profession for those that don't really have a good understanding of really what a career looks like within financial planning. What are the entry level points? What are the types of job roles within financial planning? And as it's developed since, it's changed, the rules have changed around RDR, it is becoming a profession, and there are multiple different jobs and different routes within it that somebody can take. And just a bit of a side note. Just a side note before we start, I'm bringing out the Financial Planner Life Academy. So that's coming out in September, where we take people from admin, power planning, mortgage advice, financial advice. We train, coach around their qualifications and the soft skills required in those types of positions, but also give them that thing that's been missing, which is that team of people, the Financial Planner Life, giving them careers advice. So the podcast has allowed me to do that. So happy days. Anyway, enough about me. Let's move on to you, Freddie. I'd love to kick things off around career, how you got into the profession. So how did you end up getting into financial services and then eventually into the financial planning profession?
I'd probably say if there is a standard route, mine's probably more of the standard route into it. So I've got a degree in economics, so lends itself to finance in many ways. So out of university, got on the graduate scheme at Coots. So did the 3-year graduate scheme there, which was amazing in terms of seeing all the different areas you can do in personal finance. So there was mortgages, there was protection, there was a pension specialist role that I did, the investments, and across a 3-year period, you're pretty much doing it all. Probably sounds a bit like a bit of an academy in itself. And then you pick what you want to specialize in and you roll off from there. So it was almost like have a taste and see what you're good at, see what you like, and progress from there. And for me, financial planning hit more of the spots, probably from all the technical side of things and seeing the value it could add with people, more so than the other areas. So that's where I niched down, so to speak. So that was the beginning, and then it kind of rolled on from there, just as part of Coots.
Can I stop you there? Because I've had a few people recently talking about graduate roles and entry-level positions around things like placements, internships, and in the financial planning profession itself specifically, because firms aren't really of a size where they can take those people on. I did an article around it recently, actually, because I've had a couple of youngsters that have come on that actually found an internship, and it's really helped them. How did you get that Coots, that graduate role at Coots then? Because so many people must have applied for that.
I don't know if there's any particular reason. Got the grades, went to a good university, and did well on the application process. I think from their perspective as well, because of the type of role, I think they look for people who are good communicators and that people you're just going to generally get on well with, as well as the key academic skills. That was certainly part of their interview days, is actually more communication, mock meetings, that sort of stuff, and just general chats. I think that's undervalued when it comes to actually the interview process, because I think they are looking for people that are going to get on with people. So if people are going down those routes and are successful at getting to interviews, definitely think about showing and demonstrating your communication skills rather than just what you know and your intellect, definitely.
So you can't ride off the back of your academic achievements, for example. They are starting to look at those personality traits that will develop really sound relationships, but also the personality traits and skill set that makes you a team player, somebody who can very quickly adapt to an already established team and take direction well, perhaps give feedback well themselves, look at areas where they can solve problems. So don't just think about, look, I've got a degree, that means I'm obviously capable. It's what more can I bring to the table? And if you feel like maybe in that area of your life you need a bit of work, then maybe start to think about getting some training, reading some books, looking at areas where you can improve on that side of yourself.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that I've underappreciated is particularly communication skills in this profession. Actually working on that and being able to demonstrate that, and reading books and learning how you can improve that sort of thing will definitely help you get decent roles and help you progress in the profession.
Whilst we're at this point, and if someone is at this stage in their journey, is there anything that you can recommend to them right now to get stuck into, to actually give them a sort of leg up or a helping hand when it comes to those interviews at those graduate schemes, or their first interview at a financial planning job?
You're going back some now.
Or anything you've done now, anything you've read recently that you wish you read back then, for instance?
The Daniel Priestley stuff is great in terms of building up a network and helping you pitch and talk about and communicate what you do. Really read a lot of his stuff recently, which would have been great probably 10 years ago in terms of building up a brand and being able to share that and demonstrate that succinctly. Trying to think what else. Got a bookshelf up here, but I'm not sure. I did also read stuff about kind of the sales stuff, like the I don't know what the book is, but the How to Persuade and Influence People. That book, that was something I read.
So that's Carnegie. That's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yes, that's the one.
Dale Carnegie. That's a classic. That is a classic.
Yeah.
And that's a really good book that people should read because it hasn't really changed. So yeah, that's a really good one to read.
Yeah. And the principles they last, don't they? Like, people don't change too much. It's just what they do that changes slightly. So yeah, I think anything on that sort of communication side will serve you well if you get yourself through the door and in front of people at interview.
I think the Daniel Priestley one's a really great shout. It's one that I talk about all the time. Is Key Person of Influence was the one that I felt was really good, and it gives you that systematic approach to how to become a key person of influence within a specific sector or professionalism or field. I would just highly recommend anybody to read that because I'm a big lover of process. Like if there's a system or if something I can follow, and following on from that as well, if we're going to get into the book side of things like Atomic Habits. James Clear. I mean, that was a game-changing book for me because it teaches you about the fact that we are just running on habits, right? And then we can build those habits, put them into our subconscious, and how you build and break habits is just a systematic approach of, consistency. And I think, the earlier you realize that you are just operating in that way, it becomes such an amazing tool to build good habits and recognize how to break habits. So I think, we're getting pretty early.
I would just say, something I've underappreciated until probably like 4 or 5 years ago is reading in general. Like literally there's so much good stuff out there that if I'd consumed 10, 15 years ago at the start of my career, it would have been amazing, but I just didn't see the value in it. And the most of the people who you see and you admire are incredibly well read and have read some great books that have helped them get to where they are. So just, don't underestimate the value of reading lots of good like self-help books. Are great.
And it's interesting as well, isn't it? Because I think and we're sort of jumping forward a little bit, but I think it's a good time to do it, is that when somebody thinks I'm going to become a financial planner, I'm going to learn everything I need to know about financial planning from my CII qualifications or from the textbooks. Freddie, you tell me, is there any reality in that thought?
It will help you and it'll give you the technical knowledge, but then in terms of performing that when you need to and doing the role, there's loads more to it, which is part of why it's such a great profession, that you can use technical knowledge and lots of other skills and as part of your job. But yeah, there's a lot more to it. And again, starting out, you feel like you need to consume all the technical knowledge and read all those textbooks, and you probably neglect the other skills that will actually probably help you climb the career ladder quicker than actually the technical skills, I think.
I think that right there is gold for anybody listening that's starting out, is that not only do you read your technical book, that is very technical and it is very useful, but you're not going to remember it all when it comes to the actual sitting down in front of a client, or the approach to winning new business, or going out and building relationships, influencing introducers to use your services, perhaps your marketing, how you present yourself. So yeah, having a break from the textbook and actually reading something that gives you some practical skills that you can also practice, I think is hugely valuable. And it's an area in the financial planning training journey which is completely underrated. So what you can find is lots of people get the qualifications up there, all of a sudden I'm a financial advisor, and it's like, and they're like, hang on, this is nothing compared to what I learned in the book. So I think that's a really great thing to say. And I think it's an area that people need to focus on, is that development, that personal development. But people that come from other professions, people that come across, say, from sales or marketing, a background for a few years, maybe they're 30 years old and they've worked in sales for the last 50 years. When they transition across into financial planning, because they've got lived experience in that area, maybe they've worked towards targets, they've sold things, they've done face-to-face over Zoom, all that kind of thing. Recruitment's one of those fantastic professions that does everything. So actually, I've recently spoken to a recruitment consultant that's become a financial advisor, and the transition was really, really easy, because that resilience that you need in recruitment, the thinking on your feet, spinning multiple plates, massively transferable. So anybody listening who's thinking, do you know what, can I transfer my skills from the company that I'm in at the moment, or the career that I'm in? Yeah, if you've got them, it'll fit bloody lovely into a financial planning role. If you don't have it, you're going to have to do some studying on that as well as your qualifications, right?
Yeah, I think if you've not got either, it's going to be a hard task for you. But if you've got one or the other, then it's making that transition. It's just it would be a case of building on the knowledge and getting in front of people and learning as you go, because there is a lot to learn from actually being in client meetings, speaking to clients, and understanding the nuances between different people, because all clients are different, right? And they all have different approaches to how they want their money managing and what they think about money. So there's lots of those things to pick up along the way, but there's certainly lots of transferable skills that you can bring into it, which is no bad thing.
Let's go back to your career then. Let's go back to the fact you were at Coots. You recognized within that 3-year journey that you identified financial planning as an area, or financial advice as an area of interest to you. Was that to do more with the client-facing side, the solving of problems? What was it about financial planning that was attractive?
Probably the second one to begin with, actually. I was probably a bit wary of client facing. I was probably a bit nervous on that side of things. I actually was the sort of person who liked the problem solving element, liked the technical side of things, could really get my teeth into that as a strength, and then wanted to build on the client side as my confidence grew. It was definitely more, I like the problem solving element, always have with lots of other things as well. So that's why I progressed with that side.
Fabulous. So you finished the graduate program. You established that was what you wanted to do. What's next?
So finished that, and then I actually started out as a financial planner, but got more guided towards a protection sales role, or primarily protection specialist, which I didn't really want to do, if I'm honest. I mean, I went along with it, gave it a try, but it wasn't an area that I wanted to specialize in. It was too narrow. And I wanted the broader financial planning side of things and the longer term relationships that I'd had and seen in earlier parts of the graduate scheme. So that was the trigger, along with family circumstances, to leave Coots and move back to Leicestershire, which is where I'm from, and take my career on from there. When the graduate scheme came to an end and I'd specialised in the power planning, financial planning area, I was guided down a route of specialising in protection. Which, if I'm honest, it wasn't the exact role I wanted to do. I'd seen the full power planning role and the full financial planning role, and that was more the area I wanted to go down. So I tried that for a bit, and then decided, along with family reasons and circumstances, to leave Coots and moved back out of London to Leicestershire, which is where I'm from, and progressed my career from there.
Fantastic. So very interesting then. You established that you understood that you like the financial planning side, the power planning side was something of interest to you. There are obviously personal reasons around leaving London as well. I could understand that. If you Ashby de la Zouch is where you're from, right? It's not London, right? But you either kind of like can stay in London, or you want to move back to your home or to an area that's more of a familiar environment for you, where you want to live. Did you do, whilst you were at Coutts though, like I'm just interested in to understand when you started your financial planning qualifications. Did you do them at Coutts? Did you do them, when was that?
So yeah, as part of the Coutts graduate scheme, they put you on a plan of qualifications. So I did all the investment advice diploma through the CISI, and then I did the level 6, which is the private client and investment management certificate, I think it is. I did that there. That was their program to get you to level 6. Meanwhile, because I'd specialised in financial planning, I was also doing the CII courses as well, and claiming the credits for whatever qualifications from the IAD that I could to make that quicker. So I was doing kind of both in tandem. So there was a lot of study going on at that point in my life.
Amazing. That's a huge amount of work and stuff going on. Yeah, absolutely. I've got some questions around the CISI and the CII, but maybe we'll save that for a bit further on down the line. Protection obviously can be a really interesting area for somebody to get into. And you do get people that are standalone protection advisors, but also protection is part of the financial planning process, isn't it? You do look at how you're going to protect yourself and your family if something was to happen and was something to occur. So as a financial planner, you're going to be talking about protection. It's part of the actual journey. But when you're a standalone protection advisor and you're in your box and that's your lane, that wasn't for you. But it's also like what I've noticed as well is that because become a protection advisor, you don't need to be level 4 qualified, right? You know, you just have some of the which I can't remember which qualification, RO4.
Yeah, I don't think you don't need the full set, I don't think, but it might have changed since then. But
you definitely don't need the full set. So it can be, again, an area where someone can gain confidence in getting in front of clients, and often it can be part of a trainee financial planner's journey to just be doing protection. Once they got you qualified to be able to give protection advice,
you're spot on. And that was exactly their thinking. So when they were suggesting that I go into this role, they were suggesting that with a view to me getting experience, getting in front of clients, talking about a topic that I knew a lot about, and using that as a springboard, potentially then probably to go further out and do the full piece. But they did see that as definitely a way as me building up my confidence by just doing something more niche, as opposed to trying to do the lot, I think was their view at the time, which I totally get.
Gotcha. So you left Coutts then and you went back to Ashby de la Zouch. What then?
So then I specialised back into a power planning role at Cooper Parry Wealth, which is a big wealth management firm in the Midlands. And that was quite eye-opening actually, because that was probably where I first properly fell in love with financial planning there. Because it was them, they did it very differently to the way Coutts did it. Coutts was still very product driven. Put everyone in the next Coutts investment or Coutts investment portfolio, whereas there is much more the holistic financial planning, cash flow, review everything across their financial life, which I hadn't seen before. Like I'd only really just been specialising in a pension problem or a client that just wants investment returns of X but doesn't want to take risk of Y, those sort of things. Whereas now it was much more, okay, how do we help you plan to do the things you want to do in your life? Which was like, wow, that was like a big moment for me. Go, well, now there's some serious purpose in this. And I hadn't felt that before. I think previously I was in the role because I was good at it. It suited my skill set. Now it was I'm actually really enjoy this and I actually get a lot out of this. So yeah, helping people like know that they can retire, or I've seen clients who were crying because they've been a victim of fraud and you can tell them, no, they're still all right. You're still going to be absolutely fine. Those sort of things, and be able to tell people that with confidence and help them live the life they want that was awesome. And that was probably the turning point. Was like, this is what I want to do. And really set a fire under me.
Fantastic. So that's, what you're describing there with Coots is more of a restricted proposition, right? So you're looking at this restricted proposition. They've got their own products, their own solutions, and you're kind of talking about those, and that's it. When it comes to actually sitting down with somebody and giving them a full financial plan, cash flow forecasting, using the tools to do so, talking about all the different eventualities in life that might come up and trying to build a plan around their future that is also connected to the human nature, isn't it? It's connected to how we think, the psychology of what we think about money, what we think about ourselves, what we think about our family and our future and our jobs, when we think we should retire, if we can, if we can't, what our money beliefs actually are, and are they true? And that's the beautiful thing about financial planning, isn't it? It opens you up to that conversation. It's
way more interesting.
Way more interesting. Cooper Parry Wealth are IFA as well, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. So you've gone from restricted then into IFA world, haven't you, as well?
Yeah.
So completely. And this is the beautiful thing as well. And people need to understand that if you're going to go down nothing wrong with going down a restricted route, right? It's a good route in. It's great to be qualified in that way. And you can have a massively successful career within it.
Yeah. But then, and there's nothing to say you can't do the full financial planning within a restricted model either. Like,
exactly.
That's totally fine. Coots just weren't doing that at the time. I don't know if they're doing it now, but they weren't at the time.
Of course, because the financial planning side's non-regulated. You don't even have to have qualifications to actually build a financial plan for somebody. It's only when it comes to the actual sales of the products themselves, where you recommend them, that you must be level 4 qualified, registered to the FCA to be able to give that actual selection of investment advice, for instance. But the actual financial plans, there's plenty of people out there, and this is going to be a growing area of financial planning, is non-regulated financial planners, just doing the financial plan piece and the coaching element side of it. So very, very interesting that. And you can do that in a restricted proposition. It's whether or not the restricted proposition do that, right? Whereas IFAs tended to be a bit more earlier adopters of the financial planning lifestyle.
I think that's where it started, yes. But then again, there'll be the same the other way. There'll be the IFAs out there that, again, still don't do financial planning and just sell or advise on very particular pension products or investment products. So it's both ways. The restricted model doesn't dictate whether you're a financial planning firm or whether you're just a straight up advice firm.
Spot on. Nice one, Freddie. You went into a power planner position again. Yeah. Yes. So you'd obviously, did you have sort of aspirations to actually go into financial, the actual advice role, the regulated financial planner role, did you think power planning was going to be your route?
Thought it would be my route in. And I must admit, at that point, I did look at jobs where I could have done a junior advisor role and do that. But I chose Cooper Parry because of the firm they were, what they were doing. And I felt there was a trajectory there where I could learn a hell of a lot and progress within that business at the time.
You'd been exposed already to a graduate scheme, and a graduate scheme, especially in a company like Coots, there is structure to that career path. There are goals and milestones with qualifications running alongside of it. It's almost like a career map for you. It's mapped out in front of you. When you went to Cooper Parry Wealth, for instance, was it important to you that there was a career framework in place that would get you to your end goal of being a planner? Was that even discussed, or is it something you were looking out for at that stage?
I don't think I discussed it at the time, but probably I was conscious that I wanted to be part of a firm that was that where I could see that progression. Because I did want that role where I was in front of clients and that where I was essentially taking responsibility for helping those clients, not the person behind the scenes, which is where I'd been before. So that was definitely in my mind. Was it set out clearly at Cooper Parry at the time? I don't think so, but they're a much bigger firm now, and I'm sure it is.
Okay. Lots of people will look at the administrative, what you consider to be the standard route in, right? Realistically, it's not the standard route in,
What is the standard? Yeah.
Admin to power planner to financial planner is a route. But it's not the standard, because you've got that and you've got people now going directly straight into financial planning. And there's the kind of argument. Should someone go straight into a financial planner role, or really should they start as an administrator, work through and gain experience as a power planner and then move into financial planning? Arguments for and against. Really interested to hear, Freddie, what your thoughts are on that.
I found with my career progression that I probably struggled to make that leap from power planner to actual advisor as quickly as I wanted to. I'd say I think I was probably leveraged myself on the technical side of things. And again, like I say, didn't appreciate the other side of the role that I probably needed to develop sooner to progress at the rate I wanted to. And I also found that when I did, I suppose probably knocked myself back a year. So I then had to prove myself again to then try and progress into a client-facing role. So I think there is an element that you can get stuck in a power planning role, but I think if you let your intentions known early that that's where you want to head, where you want to progress, and work on the elements that you need to transition, then I've seen loads of people do it really quickly. And it is a good route because you do have that base of technical knowledge that will be a lot better than other routes in.
Really important message there is to not only sort of put your hand up and say, this is where I want to go. This is the goal and the vision that I have for my career, but also to take responsibility for your learning alongside your job role, right? So again, you've gone back to these elements, the things that might well have been missing. Can I sit into more client meetings perhaps? Can I get some exposure to some clients? Can I deliver part of the financial planning process or the piece that I've done the research on? Can I speak to clients behind the scenes? Can I do some chasing of documentation from the product providers and understand the systems and the processes that you go through for gathering that information? So lots of things you learn in the admin and power planner side that really kind of do help you when you end up becoming a financial planner, around your expectations of the role and the timescales associated to certain tasks. So you're not being unrealistic with the team that are then there to support you, admin, power planning, client relationship teams, etc. But also take responsibility for the learning and the study and everything that goes alongside it as well to make sure that you are upskilling yourself. I assume the company you were with were enthusiastic about your visions and drive to want to be an advisor, right?
Yeah. They were decent. They were the sort of firm where you did get the time in meetings, so like you could pick parts of the meeting that you wanted to present, which massively helped build up that confidence and in presenting, in getting in front of clients. So it was great for that sort of thing. So they do have that. The way they were structured did help with that. And I think if you are a power planner wanting to get into an advice role, you need to be at a firm where a power planner is getting in front of clients, because otherwise you just go in cold, and that's hard. You've not seen how it's done by the guys that have been doing it for years. And that's another important thing where you'll learn a lot.
And that's what we're seeing is companies now developing what would be advertised as like a trainee financial planner position, where someone would take on the responsibilities of power planning alongside being exposed to the client journey and the client experience, which when you're looking for those trainee roles, make sure that is the case. Is what I would say is that, it's being laid out in front of you. Why is it trainee, or are they just repackaging a power planner role up as a trainee?
I'm sure it happens. Yeah.
Oh, it does. Yeah, it certainly does. And it's just worth sort of pushing back a little and just understanding, okay, well, what does my career journey look like in that type of role? And how long will it take me to get there? And what am I exposed to get me there? It's just, it's a good way of thinking when you go out there on your job hunt, because lots of power planners sitting in a company and they're kind of like, I really want to be a financial advisor, but I'm not really being coached towards that. So when they do look elsewhere, they're nervous about just ending up in the same position. I'm just a power planner again. Nothing wrong with being a power planner, but if you're a power planner who wants to be an advisor, it's a struggle, right? So definitely something to look out for and to question. So you ended up becoming a financial planner though, yeah? That's where a fully-fledged client-facing financial planner. But
that didn't happen until the next role, if I'm honest. Until I moved again, and then I stepped into that role. So that was part of my thinking with the next role, where I moved to a smaller, more boutique, served a few very high net worth individuals, kind of firm, where that role was a lot more clearly laid out that I could step into that role. And I felt like I'd learned enough from Cooper Parry and that my time was up there and I wanted to try something different. And probably at this point, I was starting to have that little seed in my head that I want to do this for myself. I can see how it works. And I was learning a lot from Cooper Parry and from previously as well from Coots, how I could do this myself. So I thought, in my head, moving to a smaller firm and potentially in a role where I could get in front of clients even more and actually step into that financial planner role would be a better stepping stone. Again, seeing how a smaller firm does it, because if I'm doing it myself, I'm going to be a small firm at the start. So that was starting to be my thinking. So yeah, my next role at Chamberlain's was very much with all that in mind, and stepping into that advisor role there was part of it as well, of course.
Very interesting. I love your thinking. You've got this entrepreneurial seed in your thinking, that vision starting to come. You're starting to see yourself as a financial planner in your own business, and you had the foresight to then think, well, if that's going to be the case and I'm going to be running my own business, I need to see what a smaller business does and how they operate. That's a really interesting approach to it, actually, because you can become institutionalized in a larger firm, can't you?
Well, that was part of it as well. Like, I felt like I'd either, if I stuck at Cooper Parry, I'd have to stick with how they do things, abide by their way of doing it. And there wasn't, if I'm honest, quite the right cultural fit for me in terms of how I wanted to do things. And I don't think at that age, again, I was, in my late 20s, still probably a bit naive that I could change things and they would do things the way I wanted to do things, which is not the case when it's not your business, which I've learned now. So I think there was a bit of that I knew that either I go all in at Cooper Parry, or it's time to move and try something else with an idea that, okay, maybe it works out at Chambers, maybe they're the perfect firm for me. Or if it doesn't, I'll learn a hell of a lot from there as well. And then maybe that's my next stepping stone to my own business.
Fantastic. I'm going to ask you a question here. When is the right time to set your own financial planning business up?
I don't know if there is one, because I did it with not even a 1-year-old. And you wouldn't have looked at it going, financially, that is the right time for you to do it. Time-wise, that is the right time for you to do it. Absolutely not on either of those scores. But I think for me, the story for me is I was building up to a point where I wanted to bring in clients that I wanted to serve at Chamberlain's. And Chamberlain's, they weren't the right sort of clients for Chamberlain's. So they wanted to stick with their high net worth model. And I was more like, I want to go after the more professional accumulator market and grow the clients of tomorrow rather than look after the high net worth clients of today. So I that's what I pitched to them. I was like, this is what I want to do if I want to progress as a fully fledged advisor with my own clients that I've grown. Then these are the sort of clients I want to go after. And they said, no, that's not what I want to do. So that was at the point where it's like, well, if I want to do that, I've got to do it myself now. Otherwise, I'm going to have to, either shut up and work with the clients that I'm being told to, or move to another firm again, which again felt like that would take too long. So I think there might be a point in people's careers where it just feels like the right time, or if it's now or never kind of times. And that was kind of the feeling I had at that point 2 years ago.
Lots of things in there to pick apart, actually. You've been exposed to high net worth clients for quite some time. Your very first entry point was high net worth, possibly ultra high net worth clients at Coutts. And then Chamberlain's, again, you've experienced working in a firm that specifically deals with high net worth clients, and often, especially around the financial planning models of fee percentage of ongoing assets under management and the ability to service clients. Mm-hmm. It's often considered the higher net worth the client, the better business model you have, the more better lifestyle that you might have, all that kind of stuff. And people often chase those high net worth clients. You've been exposed, been in those environments, but actually your mindset was slightly different. You wanted these professionals, these accumulators of wealth. Why?
I think possibly because they were more like me, more relatable, and I felt I could add more value. It's coming back to that purpose piece. Like, a lot of the clients that I was dealing with across all these 3 companies, like they'd made it. They didn't actually need an advisor. They'd be fine. Most of them, obviously, great. Make an advisor to make them more wealthy, more tax efficient. Like, there's lots of value to be had there. I'm not knocking it, but in terms of the real value, in terms of helping people retire when they want to, or improve their lifestyle, like, there's a lot of value in that in terms of purpose. And I agree, not necessarily profitability wise, but there's certainly a lot of value in there in terms of the purpose it gives you and that side of it.
So you felt that you were more connected to them based on the journeys that they were on, whereas perhaps high net worth, they've accumulated wealth already, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So they were already, they've often sold businesses or, inherited or, family wealth, that sort of stuff, was the previous sort of clients I was dealing with, which, so it's all great, but it's never what I pictured it. Once I started having a vision in terms of how I was going to do it, they were never the sort of clients I was going to be working with. The sort of clients I wanted to help people realize that, like, if you worked hard and you did the right things with your money, you could become the millionaires of the future, and that sort of thing. That's that journey that I wanted to help people with.
Which I think is great. I love that. That's more exciting. Like you say, you're going along side by side with people. And the thing is as well, you've kind of had it in the reverse almost, if you think about it that way, that you've seen people with wealth at the beginning of your career journey, and now you know what it's like at the end of it. Therefore, you've been exposed to it, and you can kind of almost inspire and educate, and also kind of explain to them what happens at that stage, right? So if you've seen people who sold businesses and whatnot, you've been exposed to that point in time. So when it comes to talking to somebody who's like an entrepreneur and might not have a clue about that type of thing, you can speak from experience about what it's actually like in the financial planning process because you've done it. And therefore they're kind of buying into you more, aren't they, as somebody who's got the relevant experience to take them through the journey, to be their financial planner throughout their career. And that's a really lovely way to look at it. And it's a lovely market to be working in, is those professionals, because a bit like me, really, I'm flat out on building a business. And when it comes to me thinking about money, I'm not like, it's taken me a while to put down my pen and put down my laptop and all of that and actually focus on the money aspect of it. I've just been driven on building something of value and the purpose that I follow, which is trying to sort problems and fix problems and create things that people want. Money kind of becomes secondary to that. And it's only since I've been leaning into financial planners, money coaches, that I've realized, oh, wow, I need to look at that. And, having somebody that's experienced that and going through the journey is powerful stuff. Yeah,
you're right. There's definitely skills that clients now see in me that I've got for them ready to go in the future. Like you say, business owners, or when it comes to retirement planning, that sort of thing. I think it's also from a service point of view. Like, people, whether they're like 40s and 50s, want to have a planning to know that they're heading in the right direction. Like, and the sooner that people get this, the better off they'll be. But the trouble is, the way that the industry is skewed at the moment is that they're likely only to get that because they've only got sufficient wealth to get that once they're in their 50s or 60s and have accumulated that money. So they've probably missed a hell of a load of opportunity before then to maximize that journey that they've been on for the last 20 years with their money. So it's kind of tapping into that earlier is the idea. But you're right, you do get kind of bogged down with what you're doing, and then you don't necessarily think about the financials of it all. But it's a model that's working at the moment, but I still have to turn people away. It's not like I've solved the advice gap by any means, but it's helping people on a different stage of their wealth journey, basically.
So you set up the firm Gratitude Financial Planning. So what are Gratitude Financial Planning? What things are you doing to be able to fix that problem, to be able to communicate with those types of clients that might not have had the access as early on as, say, somebody in their 50s? What are you doing to get in front of those people and win them over and get them on as clients?
Well, my main source is my social media marketing. That's how it all started, in terms of trying to turn the heads of these sort of clients to actually go, you know what, I need to think about this. So I started that. I started Nice Guy Money on Instagram as my persona for trying to get some financial education out there and help people think about this. So it might not necessarily mean that they actually become clients, but they might take something from it and do something that really improves the way they look after their money. But there also might be people, you know what, I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought that was for me yet, who actually do get in contact and start that journey with me. That's the main way that I'm trying to get these people to think about this earlier and realize that they can have this service earlier.
Are you, it's exactly a similar sort of thing that I'm doing at the moment with Financial Planner Life. It's an education piece, right? And a lot of the people that might be listening to this podcast need to hear stories and hear the real stories from people that work within the profession to get their confidence up, to realize that perhaps that they can do what that person's done, or they'll pick up some ideas around why maybe they should go self-employed and set their own business up instead of being employed. So it's that educational piece that you give away for free, but people will change their lives because of it. And I get numerous messages. Sam, I've really, I've changed my path. Your podcast has been so helpful in me doing so. And I'm really pleased that I can offer that service to help others, because when they're in the profession, I hope they're going to turn around and pick the phone up and say, Sam, can you help me now find a job? Or can you help me move from employed to self-employed? And these are all the things that obviously I can do because I own a recruitment company that specializes in financial planning. Yeah. So it's about that giving things away for free. It's the laws of attraction. If you help and you put out good things, I tend to find that good things do happen to you. Eventually, they come back to you. With social media, with Mr. Nice Guy Money, when you post something, it doesn't turn into a transactional piece of business the next day, does it?
It did, yeah. No, not at all. It's hard work. I think people underestimate, and I've seen that people underestimate how difficult it is to keep going with it and be consistent with it. Like I've seen like other money coaches or financial advisors come and go within the space of a month or 2 months because they realize how difficult it is to get some traction. And I think you do have to accept that for the first year or so, you might not get that much interest. It's not a sexy topic. It's not like you can put some really nice pictures or videos up on something. It is an educational thing if that's the route you go down, which isn't necessarily going to catch the eye on an Instagram feed. So it is a slower burn, but it does work. It is where the majority of my leads come from. And you also have to appreciate it's not necessarily directly the person who's seen it. You are now potentially that go-to guy as the financial advisor. When someone goes, do you know a financial advisor? My name might come up because they know that they've seen me on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, which is also something I didn't appreciate to begin with. So I get referrals from people who aren't actually clients, but they just know that I am an advisor who knows what he's talking about when he's talking about money.
You become word of mouth, you become that recommendation, and you want to be that when someone thinks financial planner, if they've seen your content enough, then they're going to say, yes, I know a person. I'll forward you their LinkedIn profile, or I'll forward you their Instagram page or their YouTube page. Yeah, you're absolutely spot on there. And that is the mindset. It's putting yourself out there. I think it takes seven times or something, isn't it, for someone to see
7 points of contact or something like that.
Yeah, 7 points of contact for someone to start to remember you. I can pick the phone up to people now, and I say, I'm Sam Oakes from Financial Planner Life. And they go, yeah, I know you are. And it's just like, and I've never spoken to them ever, but people know who I am because
I said the same to you when we had our first chat. It was like, it's weird that I recognize your voice, and we've never spoken before.
It's incredible. And that's the investment that you're making with your time when you create content, personal brand, social content. Is that it is an investment. When you advise somebody to invest some money, you don't say, put 20 grand in this and next week you're going to have 5. You might have 5 grand in 10 years time or 5 years time or whatever it might well be, depending upon where it's actually invested. That's not financial advice, by the way. So it's exactly the same when it comes to your marketing and your social marketing. It's an accumulation of awareness, brand awareness, and then you'll start to see that come back to you tenfold in the future. Now, it might take a year, 2 years, 3 years. Like I'm seeing some real benefit this year, and it's year 3 for me under Financial Planner Life as a brand. Mm-hmm. For 2 years, I made no money. Last quarter, I think I've done about 80,000 quid. So it's like, that's pretty good, right? Yeah. So it's and now I'm super excited about the foundation and the audience that I've built, and I want to now serve them even more. So I want to provide them with more things that can add value to their lives, not just careers based, it's other things. And I'm really excited about that. And that's the thing that spurs you on and keeps you going. And then, have you ever done much in the way of partnering with, like you're self-employed, you run your own business, right? Mm-hmm. When it comes to like brand awareness, and it comes to marketing, etc. I've tried the whole employing people. Like I employ people in my recruitment business, I've just changed my outlook now when it comes to brand exposure. I'm looking for people to the left and to the right of me that are interested or serve the audience that I have, but in a different way. And then I look to partner with those individuals to create a brand underneath Financial Planner Life. So like I've got Financial Planner Life Studios, which does video and podcast services. Then we'd have the academy. Like I'm not a trainer, but I want an academy, right?
Yeah.
So I've partnered with a trainer to create the academy.
Yeah.
So I become the attraction part of it. So I don't have to pay to build something. I just use my skill set and I'm in my lane of experience. I'm not trying to be master of everything, but I partner with another master and we come together to create something together, and it's beneficial for that person. It's beneficial for me. It's symbiotic relationships. And have you started to do that yourself? Because it's so easy to turn around and say, oh, to win clients, you have to build professional introducer relationships with accountants and solicitors. We hear that all the goddamn time.
You do. Yeah.
There are more ways to generate clients by partnering with different businesses or niches or services. Have you been doing that? Have you been looking at those ways that you can bolt on?
Not done it yet. So I've got a vision for the Nice Guy Money brand. So obviously I've got almost two brands, so to speak. I've got the Gratitude Financial Planning, which is my regulated advice business, and then Nice Guy Money, which is at the moment just my catchy persona when it comes to Instagram and Facebook. But I do have visions, again, time allowing, money allowing, to use the Nice Guy Money brand as more of a broader educational piece, maybe like the Pete Matthews stuff, I don't know, or doing educational workshops for companies that are employing the right sort of clients that I'd like to look after, and using that as that's the brand, that's the setup for that, because that marries well with the fact that Nice Guy Money is all about helping educate people, financial literacy, all that good stuff. And I could see that working well as a brand for me to go into companies and do a piece on good personal finance or on get to know your pension or whatever it may be. They're the seeds. And now you're talking about seeds in the back of my head, being entrepreneurial again. They are the sort of things that I'm thinking about. It's just, again, pulling on those threads and seeing where they go. So those sort of inquiries have been made recently, like the last 6 months. I'm starting to have people ask me if I do that sort of thing. But it's just having then the right contacts and relationships to build that out and make something of it and do it how I want to do it. So yeah, I can see how it works. I can see how once you put yourself out there, you start getting these other options and partnerships to leverage.
Can I make a suggestion? Because I like an entrepreneurial chat as well, and I come up with some ideas, and I see things. I see where things could work well for financial planners. I love your brand, Nice Guy Money. No one's really positioned themselves as Nice Guy Money. Like nobody is, right? I love your company name, Gratitude Financial Planning. It was all about gratitude. To me, you're setting yourself up as being a well-being focused individual, right? A well-being focused advisor, and all financial advisors will position themselves as well-being. But Nice Guy Money and Gratitude Financial Planning is so on brand with it, up against Coots. Coots probably want the welfare of their, the well-being of their clients to be topmost, but it doesn't sound like it, does it? It doesn't sound like it. Sounds like we're elitist and we don't want you. Whereas you are that person I could see coming onto this morning and sitting down and talking about it. Here's Freddie, even your name, Freddie Winter comes on, Nice Guy Money, talking about this. So that I can see. And what's wide open is everyone says well-being this and well-being that, but no one's connecting the two. And a really good way of doing that is to look at therapists or counselors or those already in the well-being market that have established a really good network, because they could already be going into companies and delivering well-being propositions around employee well-being or something like that, right? Or mental health in the workplace or whatever it is to kind of go out there and find those people and start to establish relationships with them, start to tell them the vision that you have around well-being and how money is connected to overall well-being. They'll know this. you know, and therapists and counselors and well-being specialists will often come across people where money is the problem, right? And you become the person that they refer those individuals actually to. But if you took that a step further, Nice Guy Money podcast, something along those lines, and they become your guests. Like my guests are financial planners, your guests will become those specialists.
Yeah.
So you have a subject that you talk about with that specialist who's an expert, and you drop in every now and then a bit around the money side of it, right? But they might be talking about the specialism being how to manage anxiety or depression, or how physical fitness can affect your outlook in life, or it could be somebody who specializes in addiction or whatever, right? All these things that people search for. People are always searching for a solution to a problem, the human problem, right?
Yeah.
Money is one of those funny ones. I said to you, I sorted all my problems out mentally and internally and spiritually, and money was the last one I sorted out. Yeah. But when I did look at it, my God, did I feel good. I felt really good just by simply setting up things like a budget plan, organizing my bank accounts in certain ways, prioritizing debt payments and all those things, and saving. An emergency fund was a game changer for me, because I spent so long saving for a house that when it was all gone, I went into a pit of like, oh my God, I've lost all my money. I didn't think about it was in my house. So I had to rebuild it all again and teach myself a new habit and a new structure of how I manage my money. And it was game changing for me. So I see someone like you partnering with those well-being experts, bringing them onto your podcast, having amazing conversations that people search for. The listener then becomes aware of you.
It's true.
The person that you're working with and bringing onto the podcast becomes aware of you and then starts to refer you into their network. And then you establish and you grow that way. And it's searchable, it's interesting. And I think one of the areas that, and I banged out about this quite recently, divorce, right? Women are doing a really, really good job at the moment. So they're saying that there's not enough women in financial planning, but there's loads of women coming in, and there's loads of women that are doing coaching. And there's also loads of women that are experiencing women on women financial planning, women supporting women through their financial journeys. But men go through the same things as well.
Yeah.
And as much as we need it for women, we need it for men. And men can be very prideful, can't they? They can minimize things. We don't talk about things enough. So when you combine that with good mental fitness and good mental health, then it's wide open. I watched a podcast and it was a divorce specialist and a financial planner. Now, the conversation was about fixing relationships. And it was lovely. It was like, what can be done to fix the relationship, and what part money plays in that? Are the arguments and the disdain and the resentment stemming from money and somebody's money beliefs in that relationship? Because that can kill relationships. So the idea was to save relationships. But of course, wanting to marriages break down, women have often been in positions and situations, especially around pension plans, etc., where they do tend to walk away with less. But men now need to also, now more women are looking after household income, for example. More men need to look at their own financial situation and their position as well when it comes to divorce. And at what stage do you start thinking about it? Because if there's children involved in that process, if there's a house, if there's businesses, it becomes tricky and complicated. I just see that as a wide open area that can be dominated by Mr. Nice Guy Money.
You're right. I had a conversation with again, it was fitness and wellbeing. So he did went into companies and did this, like, workout sessions or workout away days, or they did topics on like sleep and things like that, or diet and nutrition. And again, it does fit in so well as part of that whole like health and wellbeing. Finance is a key element of that. And I think it's an underestimated, intangible benefit of financial planning that people don't appreciate, that it does give you peace of mind, gives you reassurance, even if it's that someone else is looking after it and taking care of it for you, or it might be the fact that you know where everything is. And I think you're spot on. Like, as I progress through this and as I grow this company, those sort of relationships and partnerships will be massive. So I need to look at those things and see where I can grow that.
It's where I see this. It's where I don't. So when people come into financial planning and they set their own businesses up, more often than not, they don't have that development experience, that business development experience. So they gravitate more towards B2C. because it's like I can sort the customer's problem out, right?
This is me. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got B2B. B2B opens and exposes you to more customers, but via somebody who's already established that. So what you do is go to that B2B, you give them a platform to talk about what they do, which gives them more brand exposure.
Yeah.
But then they give you a platform to talk to their customers about it. So instead of talking to 100 customers, which you're doing incredibly well on your Mr. Nice Guy social posts anyway, so you've already nailed that. It's like, then, well, what can I do on the B2B side? And you just don't see enough on the B2B side in financial planning, and it is wide open. You know, people say, I focus on business advice, businesses, that's what I focus on. And the ones that actually do, and they partner with like employee benefits companies, they do really, really well, because obviously the employee benefit company has all the customers.
Yep.
So you're finding 50 introducers. And also, do you know what? Like, isn't it far more interesting to talk about a subject that you actually like? So if it's well-being, then it's way more kind of like interesting than, like, I don't know, talking to a solicitor or an accountant. I would probably say unless there's it's more engaging and interesting and searchable.
Definitely. I think, if as opposed to the solicitor accountancy, getting your like link ups with those, I think that's done, tried and tested, and not the way to do it. And I think you're right. It's finding these other avenues where your clients are, and leveraging the relationship you've got to get yourself out there. I think it's all about networking. It's all about raising your awareness and getting your name out there. It's, again, something that I totally underestimated probably 5 years ago, and wish I'd started it as soon as I started this career.
I think you should give yourself credit, actually, because you're way ahead of the game. And I think it's that consistency approach again. You've said to yourself, look, this isn't going to happen overnight. I'm going to build my brand, and you're doing it. It's like, and you even said earlier, like, you've seen people come and go. They do come and go when it comes to social media, because it's hard work, it's graft. And like, when I see people like other recruiters trying to do like a financial planning recruitment podcast, I support them because I want them to do well, right? But in the back of my mind, I know it's graft, and I just kind of wait for them to fizzle out. So it's quite an interesting thing to see.
It's so true. It's just, I think people don't realise how long it takes. Particularly when it's creating your own content, how difficult it is to keep coming up with new ideas, and then to keep doing it 2 or 3 times a week amongst everything else you've got going on. It's hard work, but like I said, I'm now getting the fruits of that. But it's taken 3 years.
Freddie, how do you come up with the content ideas?
And this is another benefit of it, actually. It's I think because I've set myself up now that I put content out there 2 or 3 times a week. I read and consume so much more. Like, it's forced me to do that. Like, I think you become a better advisor and more knowledgeable for the fact that you are writing about it, posting videos about it, communicating about it all the time. So it's reading loads, it's watching loads of YouTube, way more than I used to, and then having a good note-taking system. So I've got a very organized note-taking system in lots of different categories that I can just pull from, depending what the theme is for the week. So I try and theme the weeks if I can. So there's a lot goes on behind the scenes that people don't appreciate, I think.
Talk to me about this note-taking system.
So it's on Notion. I don't know if people use Notion. So I've just basically set up a database on Notion where I've got categories for like personal finance, self-improvement and wellbeing is one, investments, pensions, family. I think they're my main 5 pillars, if you like. And then as and when I get content come to me, ideas, I've got the app in my phone, I'll write it in there, and it's all categorized automatically. I just have to select the right drop downs. And then whenever I want to do a post on wellbeing, I've got probably 10 things I've already got saved in there to do a post about.
Interesting. So you would then put in like almost a prompt and maybe a synopsis or an outline of the idea of what you might well talk about. So once it comes into your head, you put it into your notes section, but you categorize that into a relevant category. When I come to do it, I'll then do the rest of it. So whether that's scripting it out for a video, or whether that's mapping it out for a 3-picture post on
on social media. I'll then map it out, and then that'll be the stage in which I'm then preparing the content to post.
Very interesting way of doing it. And then you take that idea. Do you then take the idea and do you dedicate a specific day to writing out some of those content ideas, or do you freestyle it? How do you approach the actual, because you do yours on video, on video. So you use your mobile, don't you?
Yeah. So it's very amateur at the moment. It's just a good mobile phone, and a tripod, some lighting, and I'll just position myself at different areas, try and mix it up, and just read from a script. That and post that. I mean, I do create images and pictures as well, if I feel like the content's better suited for just a quick, snappy 2 or 3 pieces of content.
So when it comes to distribution of that content, what do you use? What social media channels? Because it can be quite exhausting, different sizes of videos or images for different types of social media channels. What's your go-to channels?
So Instagram's where I primarily focus. That's where it all started. And I've then tried to build that out on Facebook and LinkedIn pretty much just by copying the content. I'll try and maybe change slight bits of it, but because like you say, because of the time consuming nature of it, it largely is just a copy onto the other social networks.
And how many hours do you say a week do you dedicate to content creation?
It's probably the best part of the day, I think, 5 to 6 hours a week to do 3 pieces of decent content. It's the scripting of it. It's then producing it or creating it, and then it's the editing of it. Like particularly videos, that I really underestimated how long it takes to edit a video, and I'm so particular as well. So I probably could do it quicker, but I have to be a perfectionist at times. So it is a process, and I'd say each video probably takes an hour and a half to write, record, edit, and post. So it is. There's definitely parts of that I want to get rid of as soon as I can, because there's a lot of time that goes into that. Interesting.
What parts would you actually get rid of, Freddie?
I would definitely get rid of the editing part of it.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be the main thing, and I'm trying to leverage AI as much as I can to help me with the writing of the scripts as well, to just make that a bit slicker and quicker. So I'm doing that a bit, but I don't know. I find that particularly for what I do, that bit's going to be very difficult to hand off to someone, because you need not only someone who knows the knowledge, but you need to know someone who knows your brand and what you want to put out there if they're going to be writing stuff for you. So I'm not quite sure. Well, I'm sure there's partners out there for that sort of stuff, but that'll be a tricky one.
Yeah, the idea creation side of it and then the scripting of it, that's at the beginning. It's very difficult because it was also it's your personal brand, it's how you come across. But the editing side of it can definitely be, stuff you're doing in respect to your phone that can be outsourced, and it can be done quite cheaply. You should definitely look into that. If you did do that though, and you outsourced it, would you double up on the content that you created with the free time?
I don't know. Probably. I'd like to think that it would allow me to do other stuff as well. So I'm keen, once time allows, that to do blogs as well, because I'm finding that when I do a topic, that I could repurpose that in so many ways.
Yeah.
So, like, say for example, I'll do I did a post on child benefit recently, like a few different things on all the quirks of child benefits, and I could have done that in a blog, written it all out in a nice blog, posted it on my website, and then taken the chunks out of that to then do two or three videos, or 2 videos and a picture, and split it out. Because I've gone to the trouble of writing half of it anyway, just by scripting things and putting captions on things. So there's definitely an economies of scale from doing that. So I'd like to start doing that once I've got time to do it.
Might be worth you looking at longer form content. Like you said about the blog. So if you took, say for instance, I've got a podcast, right? So my podcast would be like an hour long. For my podcast, I would then turn into an article. From my podcast, I can create social clips. If I want to be really savvy about it, and I am with the ones where someone pays me to do a podcast, I'll turn that into 12 social posts.
Yeah.
Now I'm moving into the YouTube side of it. I'm going to bolster out my YouTube channel. I will structure podcast episodes to be then YouTube 5-minute clips.
Right.
I'll then repurpose those into YouTube shorts as well. So that when the bigger form, the longer form content you go for, doesn't have to, this is why a podcast is quite good, because you can literally, from a podcast, as long as you record it, can do so many repurposements from it. It's unreal. So, and that's like then in its own right, it's then adding another medium to your marketing.
Yeah.
So social becomes a byproduct of podcasting and YouTube.
Yeah.
And that's quite an interesting way. That's the way that I do it, and I found that to be a really beneficial way to do it, and to build then authority in podcasting, which is increasing in respect of a medium that people listen to. It's wide open for the idea we talked about with the money thing and the well-being side of it. So something, food for thought for you, food for thought for people listening. I think it's a really interesting area, and we all, see it. We all are exposed to it, and we all think we can do it. It's hard, it's tough, but strategically, it's just how you position yourself to do it in a way where you can repurpose it and get the maximum amount of content from the work that you do. Can you turn 8 hours a week into an amazing marketing process? It's just, where do you start? Where, what's the starting point of it? And even you change the starting point of it, all of a sudden you're exposing yourself to 2 or 3 other areas where you can get your name out there. And then the approach to it and how you build that starting point. You've gone down the route of actually going directly authorized, haven't you, with your firm?
I have, yeah.
Okay. So why directly authorized over, say, joining a network and starting up as an AR? What was your reasons for that?
A lot of it actually was to do with the social media side of things and how I wanted to market myself. From the conversations I'd had with people who'd gone down that route, albeit it seems a lot quicker to get set up and you have a lot of the back office stuff sorted for you. It was that, how restrictive is it going to be in terms of me putting content out there and essentially marketing and advertising myself? And I didn't want that restriction. I didn't want permission to have to do an Instagram post or a LinkedIn post. Thank you very much. I know some firms are there's a spectrum in terms of how tight people are with that, and that is also changing with the times. But at the time I was doing it, I just didn't want that as a barrier. And likewise, I wanted to make sure I was doing things how I wanted to do it with across the whole of my advice and planning piece. I went for it. But it is something people do need to bear in mind, how long it takes. So I think it's about an 8-month process to go from making your application to getting it all ticked off and going live. And that could be longer depending on issues or just how lucky you are with who you get as your case handler. So it does take a while. So but again, it's one of those, I think however you want to do it, you'll find the right solution for you depending on how you want to set your business up.
Great reasons why. Great advice there about the timescale side of it as well. But also there's a cost associated with going directly authorized. Capital adequacy, for example, you've got to take into consideration. How much did it cost you, if you don't mind me asking, going through the process of being directly authorized?
So capital adequacy, I need to have 20 grand in the bank, which I can't touch. It's like just sits there. And then I think it must have been, my fee was about 1,500 for the FCA, and then probably about the same I use Simply Biz to help me with the whole process. And they were very good at that, I must admit. They were good at that, helping with that. So about 3 grand there, and then you've got insurance and all the other business costs. But for that core bit, you need about, I'd say, 25 grand, and then whatever your budget is for everything else you'll need on top, unfortunately.
When you look at the actual running costs of your business, standalone, because it's just yourself in the business, you've got no employees at the moment, right?
No, it's just me.
So if you're thinking about going self-employed, and I'm sure you did the beauty parade around some of the networks, you might be paying away 30% to a network or a firm to be a registered individual or to be an AR. What percentage do you think of your total income, of your turnover, goes towards running costs of your business, including fees and personal indemnity cover and all of that kind of stuff?
I think it's not, I would say, doing it the way I'm doing it at the moment, it's not that expensive.
Yeah.
Because I don't pay for an office, I don't have any staff. So my main costs are my compliance fees, my insurance, and then all the software and extra stuff that I need in the background. So I'm probably doing it off a budget of, I'd say, 20 grand a year, which is not a lot really in the grand scheme of things. So that's probably what. Yeah, that's not a lot in terms of turnover for me at the moment against turnover. So it's once you get up and running, provided you can earn enough to pay yourself, the other costs aren't that significant these days because you don't need all the other fixed costs to go with it. So that's something to bear in mind, and something I didn't really appreciate until I actually looked at it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think capital adequacy is a big one. People need to obviously have that money saved up, and obviously you can't touch it. So I think, that can be a bit of a stumbler for some people. But, I think if you're getting to that stage where you're thinking about going directly authorized, you should hopefully have already built that pot up. You've got that in mind. Did leaving your company as an employed advisor, because you were an employed advisor, weren't you? So was there a crossover between you being employed as an advisor to then applying for going directly authorized and FCA authorization and all of that? How did you manage that part of the process? Because that could be quite unnerving for somebody, because they might feel they're going to lose their job and their income. What happened during that period, and how did you manage it?
So I probably did this the wrong way. I think I probably should have had. Well, I had a conversation more with my current employer. I actually took the decision that once I told them that I was going to leave, and then use that time to set everything up and get going. And I think that's what they wanted as well, because there's a bit of a conflict of interest there. Because I think you probably could do it a lot more slyly and just start the process, and then once it's looking like you're going to get your authorization, then hand in your notice and just do it that way. But because, going back to my previous story, I'd already pitched the idea, and this is what I want to do, and this is where I want to go within this firm, and that didn't marry up with what they wanted to do. That was almost like, well, this is a pivotal point now where it's like, I need to make a decision. I need to make that clear. And I suppose I could have lied and gone along with it and just carried on behind the scenes setting up my own business, but I didn't do that. Once that decision had been made, I agreed with my employer at that point that I was going to go off and I was going to go for it. And I had their well wishes, and they were incredibly supportive, and were just, pleased that I was going out and doing something I wanted to do. So I thank them for that. But I didn't try and juggle the two in my instance.
And in your situation, so in your situation, being employed then to then going self-employed as a directly authorized financial planner, let's be honest, how long was the gap in between you earning some money into your business? Because, I know what it's like to go alone. So what's the reality surrounding that? And what do you think people should do to prepare for that?
It was probably over 12 months before. So going from the point where I quit my job and submitted my FCA application, which is about the same time, to then getting authorized, to then starting the process with the first few clients, and then getting fees on from those first few clients, it was probably about easily 12 months, probably 14 months before I actually then started getting an income in. And obviously even then that income's not enough to really, that's just starting to chip away at that 20 grand cost of setting up. So I would say that I'm coming up to I've done 2 years now. And I'd say you need a 2-year runway of being able to support yourself if you're doing it the way I'm doing it. Because I only had 2 or 3 clients that I was bringing on that I knew. So it was properly, I'm going in cold with this, and I back myself to get the leads from the attention I'm getting from what I'm doing elsewhere. So I gave myself a 2-year cash flow of income, knowing I can meet my bills, cut back on lifestyle and all that to make it possible. But I'd say 2 years. But it depends again what your circumstances are, how many clients you think you can bring across.
Freddie, great. So, going down the directly authorized route, people do need to think about money. They need to think about how they're going to support themselves during that period, because if you don't have clients that you can instantly transfer across or novate across, if you like, then you are going to be starting from a standing start, right? You might have some restricted covenants in place, especially if you're an employee. It's not a matter of you being able to just novate clients across. It might be different if you're self-employed and you've got a contract that states that you have those client relationships and the income will actually follow you. But in your circumstances, it didn't. So it's well worth noting, if you listen to this, you're wants to go down the directly authorized route, is that you need to save up your capital adequacy. meritocracy side of it. It does take time to get through the process. You need to look at the process of actually leaving an employed role to actually going down the directly authorized route. But then you also take into consideration, how are you going to live? Where's your income coming from? And what you're going to do during those periods to make sure that you give yourself a good running start when you're up and running.
Yeah.
I think that's another thing to look at as well. But Freddie, I could talk to you all day about business. I could talk to you all day about setting things up. I think we've covered some really interesting things today on your journey. And I think your background and where you are today, I think it's really, really exciting. So the future for you, I'm excited for you. You know, I think it's you're doing it from, I talk to so many financial planners, and you're doing it from such a great place that it's in line with you and your core purpose and your core values. I would go back to those 5 pillars in your notebook, and I would just reflect on it. Are those 5 pillars your values? Mm-hmm. Are they your company values? Because it might be that the 5 pillars that you've created, you've actually created the values and therefore the culture of your business. So when it comes to growing your business further, it's those 5 pillars that are really truly who you are, because you value those in connection with financial planning, money management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point.
I think that's quite an interesting area. It'd be worth exploring that. And it's always funny because people always say, what are your values as a company? There's a big thing about it for years, wasn't it? Like, oh, you've got to have values, you've got to have this and the other.
Yeah.
I can't remember the values of my company. But when I sit and I think about my intrinsic values, I can articulate those, the reasons, my purpose for doing things. But I love that approach, and it's something that I'm going to take away. So you've taught me something today, Freddie. I'm going to take that one away, and I'm going to do that one. Freddie, thank you so much for your time today. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the Financial Planner Live podcast and sharing your career journey.
You're welcome, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.